Geoff, it seems like this has been the talking point for the last 2 weeks. We have scrutinized everything about Erik Ten Hag at Manchester United. There was an Ineos meeting that lasted 7 hours a couple days ago. What more can you tell us about the situation with Erik Ten Hag as manager of Manchester United?
I think, Nico, there's probably one word that sums up exactly what is going on right now at Manchester United, and that is inertia. Nothing. There is nothing happening whatsoever, certainly that we know of. So you have to look a little bit deeper as to why that is. And cast your mind back to the summer. They won the FA Cup, and it was about, will they sack him, won't they sack him? It was expected he'd be sacked straight after the FA Cup final because it was expected they were going to lose. They interview several managers, they talk to several candidates, and then he gets a reprieve. They decide he's going to carry on, and they go and visit him on holiday, and they're going to stick with what they've got. Now, your problem you have there, that is in July, okay? That's in this summer. We're only just into October. So if the people that decided to back him just a couple of months ago all of a sudden say, yeah, he's hopeless, he's got to go, that does not look very good on them whatsoever. So then you can start questioning their judgment. So then you say, okay, we look at that party of people, and this is Ineos, and there's an awful lot of chiefs here. You've got Brada, you've got Brailsford, you've got Ashworth, you've got Wilcox. Are they all completely aligned as to what they think should happen, or who indeed should be the replacement? Should they find a replacement? So that's what I'm not overly surprised that we've heard nothing whatsoever. And normally something leaks out, but it has been absolutely watertight. My gut feel is they're just going to limp along to the remainder of this season, hoping that it gets better. But that in itself, I don't think Ineos have started particularly well. The first big decision they've had to make is it's just poor. It's really, really poor because the results are so poor. Nico, you just showed his results there, where he managed to break his own record last season of being the worst finish. It's astonishing how bad Manchester United are. And when you think the people who bought in so they could run the football operations, put this very, very plain to them, this coach has overseen the worst ever start ever in the Premier League for this club, and you're saying he's the guy to continue. And you've given him 600 million to spend, of which there's very, very little resale value.
Geoff, every time that you and I are on, this is the running joke. This is the running joke. And you're already laughing at me. You already know what I'm going to say. Nico smiling. Suze is getting her laughs in. I feel like everyone in the Premier League is singing, Erik Ten Hag, we want you to stay. At what point does this Manchester United job, and do we get to a point where, is this the same luster, or is there the same luster about this Manchester United job that there was in the past? Because it's shocking to me.
No chance.
It's shocking to me that a manager has been this poor consistently to start a season. Yes, trophies are one thing, but you still don't have any sense of direction of who you want to come in and what direction you want to go?
Yep, no identity, no pattern of play, no clear cohesion. I think it's, if you think about it, though, I think it shows just what a mess Manchester United are in ever since Sir Alex Ferguson left, right across the club. They talk about things being world-class. Dave Brailsford has been on record saying we want world-class here. They've identified 2028 as the year when they'll be challenging again for the Premier League. They are a million miles from that. And they've got to get themselves their own house in order to talk of a new stadium, how they're going to strip back the club, bring back its core values. But they are all over the show right now. And to your question as to what has got to happen, how bad can it get before they're forced to make a change? In my experience, directors, chairmen, owners of clubs, they can deal with difficult times, the manager going through a difficult time, they can back him, but it's when the crowds turn on them, when it starts to become uncomfortable sitting in that director's box, when the crowd start chanting, sack the board, when they start feeling heat, that is when normally something that triggers a reaction. So right now, I think a lot of Manchester United fans, they were so excited when Ineos came in. So Jim Ratcliffe, local boy, not just done good, local boy, done billionaire, done amazing, and a real Manchester United fan. They thought this was it. This was the ticket. All of his expertise, his professionalism, his involvement in other sports, this was going to take Manchester United back to where they belong in the eyes of so many fans.
What?
And if you look at all the pieces, that's what should have happened. It's actually gone the opposite way.
How far removed are we from those protests at Old Trafford against the Glazers? Was that right after COVID? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was still in charge. They protested against the board, and now we're asking for the fans. Like, if the fans really want the club to go in another direction, it's against the new ownership, I guess. Protests against the board now. But it seems like, Geoff, I'm going to challenge you on that, because it has happened before, and if they want Manchester United to go into a whole direction, I think we need to start peeling back so many layers to this onion that it's not just the too many cooks in the kitchen now. It feels like ever since post Alex Ferguson, when there was one man that was so omnipotent with the club culture, the structure, he's gone. It felt like Manchester United wasn't left in a place where they can succeed, because they've gone manager after manager after manager after manager after manager, and we're still having these same conversations, Geoff.
Yeah, no, as I alluded to just there, Nico, because ever since Sir Alex Ferguson left, because he ran so much of the club has basically fallen apart because there wasn't the structure in place. But don't forget, he worked for a long time under the Glazers. So they were aware of what the structure was and how the club was being run or not run, if you like. And they're still the majority owners of the club, haven't put anything in place. So it's broken. It doesn't work as it is. The other thing, going back to the potential sacking of Erik Ten Hag, if they can't get the candidate they want, what do? Get another interim manager? That'd be what, their third, fourth, fifth? I've lost count of how many interim managers.
The job is yours, Geoff. You got it, Geoff. I know you want it.
Shreeves, I will put you in charge of the club tomorrow, and then name Nico and I as your assistants.
Look, it's a mess, and the fact that, as I said, it's inertia. That is what they've got right now. Nothing's happening. They're either going forwards or they're going backwards in terms of results. You look at those players there. Also, as well, can you tell me a single player who's arrived at Manchester United on their watch who has improved? You look at that list now, any of you, tell me which player there has improved since he came to the club. I can't name one, can you?
Lisandro Martinez might be.
He's taken his game.
He just got dropped. He just got
dropped
in spurts. I'd say he has
I would say maybe a month ago, he was one of Manchester United's best players, but no, I'm trying to make an argument for somebody. Onana has gotten better since he got there, because he started so poorly. But was he a better keeper at Inter? I would probably say so.
Inter and Ajax.
No, it's a long list. It's not as though we can leap to one and say, yeah, he's better. The other thing as well, they're 14th in the table right now. I don't think there's any panic at boardroom level. They're not thinking, we're going to get sucked into the relegation zone. Of course there isn't. But they start losing matches to other mid-table clubs, then the reality of where they are and how far they've fallen, and those fan protests start, that is when the heat will come on. It's just, which seems ridiculous, because it is as plain as the nose on your face. This isn't good enough. The manager, he is not getting the best out of these players. The recruitment isn't good enough. The results, it's not that they're just not good enough. They're absolutely terrible. Absolutely, they're disastrous. What more do they need the owners of the football club, particularly Ineos, who are in charge of the football operations, to see they need to make changes? And they need to make them now, because everything in the football club stems from the results. And a new coach coming in, how many of those players is he going to want to keep? They've got a huge amount of money to spend. It's a massive job to turn this juggernaut around.
Yeah, a lot of work to do, Geoff. Well, we were mentioning protests, and speaking of protests, let's talk about something that we had a conversation about at the top of the show, which is the schedule congestion and all of these football matches. Before you tell me what you've heard in England amongst players and amongst that rhetoric that's going on around the club, what's your personal take from your wide experience of witnessing and broadcasting football, the state of the game where we are now in the congestion of matches?
It's a good question, Nico. My take isn't so much, and this isn't meant to sound uncaring. This is genuinely a personal and a gut feel that we're all privileged that we work in and around the game. We're not players, obviously, but we make our living from football. We broadcast, we talk about it, we write about it, etc. And we're all football fans. We all love football. I personally think there is just too much football. There's too much football on television, which may sound, counterproductive for somebody like me. But, it's like the old adage. The reason gold is precious is because there's not that much of it. When it's night after night after night, and we've got a huge game on Tuesday, followed by a massive game on Friday, followed by a thriller on Saturday, an amazing game on Sunday. It's too much. And it takes away the specialness of it. I'm not at all a fan of the new Champions League at all, because it's just more games. And they're not more special. They've taken away a lot of the jeopardy. So it's you've got to be careful that you don't kill the golden goose. And I think that's that there's overload. Now, that will have an effect in many areas. If you dilute the product in terms of the money, which you can sell it for, because there's just too much of it, then there's going to be less money. Of course, and this isn't in any particular order, there will be apathy amongst audiences and fans. The amount of streaming services they can afford to buy.
Already is. We're already at that point. It's like you get to midweek. Okay, I did it on Wednesday. I watched football all day on Wednesday. This is coming from a broadcaster. You get to Thursday. There's La Liga, especially in the United States, where you can really consume every single league. What motivation are they giving me to watch 3 games on a Thursday when I could watch 5 games on a Friday and 12 games on a Saturday and every single day of the week?
I think you've hit the nail right on the head. Never mind the players. What about us? Our eyes are aching. They're out on stalks. My couch is overloaded. I'm getting fatter by the day. Of course, I'm joking. Of course. But and we're privileged to watch football and talk about football. But then there is the overload on the players. Now, I think that's quite a technical question, and it's obviously it's sad that Rodri was injured, having spoken about it recently. But it comes down to how many games are too much. I saw you're talking about Yamal there. So you absolutely, 80 odd games, that's just utterly ridiculous. There was a study that said the red zone, if you like, the danger zone, was between 50 and 60 games per season, depending on the player's age. Now, Rodri played 63 games, I think I'm right in saying, last season. But it's a hard rule. It's hard to know where you draw the line, because it's the top clubs that will play more games. There'll be clubs in the Premier League who don't go as far in competitions, who aren't in Europe. They'll play 20 games less than other clubs. So also you've got teams that have come up from the Championship, where of course they play way more games in the league than they will do in the Premier League as well. But personally, I feel you do have to look at it, because their bodies can only take so much. It's, I think one of the most facile comments whatsoever is, well, take less money. I just find that incredibly ignorant, because, you're just going to see players breaking down more and more and more, and they won't be able to cope. I also feel that coaches should rotate their teams more. When coaches come out and complain about the schedule, and they complain about the amount of games they're playing, well, you've got squads of 25.
Right, but that's easy for a Manchester City. It's easy for a Liverpool.
Chelsea.
It's easy for a Chelsea. But then you go down the line, and it becomes a little bit more difficult when you only have a certain limited amount of game changer type players.
Yeah, but now you're into the argument, Nico, though, of wanting to pick your best players all the time, and quite rightly, as a coach, you're putting the result ahead potentially of a player's welfare. So you've got a squad of 25. What if they brought in a rule that said, okay, they all have to play an equal amount of games?
No, right. That would be ridiculous. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so they can't have, as usual in any dispute, you have a number of parties who have a common interest, and you should try and resolve that dispute as a group, as a body, where you take into account each other. So you've got the economy, you've got the results, and you've got the player welfare. Unfortunately, they don't act in concert. There's no towing. There's not an agreement here as to what comes first. Is it the money? Is it the welfare? Is it the competitiveness of the team that's put out in, week out? I think it's a really difficult thing to solve. Do I think there'll be a strike? No, I don't. These things have been talked about before. It very, very rarely happens, a strike in football. So I can't see it happening. To be honest with you, to wrap up all three things today, player welfare and playing too many games. I mean, we didn't even touch on Manchester City and where that's going, plus Manchester United. These are going to rumble on and on and on. I think there'll be a lot more noise, but it'll be some time before we see any action on all three fronts.
All right, we're going to have you on speed dial then, Geoff, for the rest of the semester and probably into the new year and into the summer. So thank you for your insight, and we'll hit you up very, very soon, I imagine.
Always good to talk to you guys. See you soon.